Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the exact legal protections and practical tools you need to navigate workplace hazards. Look, whether you're stepping onto a massive construction site, like a huge wastewater treatment plant, or you're just organizing inventory in a small warehouse, understanding your fundamental rights isn't just a box-ticking exercise for HR. It's literally about making sure you and your crew go home safely every single day.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start by clarifying hazard versus risk, move into the chain of responsibility, and then hit the main event, your 3 basic rights. After that, we'll cover exactly how to refuse unsafe work, and finally, how you're protected from discrimination when you do.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Hazard versus Risk.
To really get a grip on the dynamic environments you're working in, picture this. You're crossing a quiet little neighborhood street. You use all the standard safety protocols, right? You look left, look right, use the crosswalk. Pretty safe. But now, imagine taking those exact same safety steps and trying to walk across a massive 6-lane highway with traffic absolutely flying by at 100 kilometers per hour.
On a scale of 1 to 5, walking across that highway shoots your chances of a fatal accident straight up to a 5. But think about it. The core danger, the moving vehicle itself, hasn't changed one bit. What actually changed were the environmental conditions. The speed of the cars, the volume of traffic, the lack of safe crossing infrastructure.
And this perfectly illustrates the difference. The hazard remains exactly the same. It's the moving car. But that shift in the environment completely changes your risk. So a hazard is any source of potential damage, while risk is the actual likelihood and severity of that harm happening to you. This is exactly why safety controls that work flawlessly in a quiet, controlled environment can just totally fail in dynamic, shifting ones like an active job site.
Moving on to Section 2, the chain of responsibility.
We all know safety is a team effort, right? Well, the law legally assigns distinct duties to everyone on site, creating this shared chain of responsibility. Your employer actually holds the highest level of responsibility here. They've got to provide the overarching safety program, make sure you're trained and qualified, and supply all the necessary PPE. Meanwhile, your supervisor, the one directing the day-to-day work, they're legally required to make sure you know about all immediate hazards in your area, and they have to respond to any safety concerns you bring up.
But here's the crucial point. Your role as a worker is equally vital to this whole chain. You have to be fit for duty, physically and mentally, follow that training, and really act as the eyes and ears on the ground. Think about it. An employer can only fix a hazard if they actually know it's there. Like the materials say, safety problems literally cannot be solved if nobody knows they exist. You've got to report those near misses and that damaged equipment.
Which brings us to Section 3, your 3 basic rights.
This is the absolute core toolkit the law provides to protect you. Before we dive into the big 3, let's draw a sharp line between a responsibility, which is a duty you have to fulfill, like, say, wearing your hard hat, and a right, which is an action you are legally empowered and permitted to take. But, as you'll see, your right to be safe goes hand in hand with your responsibility to actually act safely.
Okay, your very first basic right is the right to know. This basically guarantees you are never sent into a job flying blind. Your employer is legally required to tell you about any and all hazards you might face, explain exactly how you could be exposed to them, and outline the specific steps they've taken to minimize those dangers. You have a fundamental right to proper info, training, and supervision. Second up is the right to participate. You are not just a cog in the machine here. You're an active participant in the safety process. This gives you the power to ask questions, join in on toolbox talks, call out unsafe acts, or even step up as a representative on a joint health and safety committee. That's where your real, on-the-ground worker knowledge meets management's oversight. It's a real game changer.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Your third right, the right to refuse, it actually becomes an absolute duty in certain situations. If you're asked to do a task and you've exhausted all options to fix a hazard and there's still an undue danger, you don't just have the right to say no. You are literally legally obligated to refuse that work.
So let's look at exactly how to do that in Section 4, Refusing Unsafe Work.
Let's break down the step-by-step procedure you need to follow to exercise this right. Doing this by the book ensures you stay fully protected. You start by immediately flagging the issue to your supervisor. Say you're told to climb an access ladder that's way too short and missing a safety rail. You just tell them, look, I'm not comfortable doing this, it's not safe. Then the two of you have to investigate it together.
and that hazard must be physically corrected before anyone goes near that task.
But what happens if your supervisor disagrees, or maybe their quick fix just doesn't cut it? Well, if you still feel unsafe, the law lays out a clear escalation path. You notify your supervisor again, and this time a safety committee rep gets brought in for a second look. And if it's still not resolved after that, your supervisor is legally required to contact the regulatory body, like WorkSafe BC, and they'll send out an official inspector to make a final, binding ruling.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 5, Protection from Discrimination. Okay, we got to address the elephant in the room. The most common fear people have is, am I going to get fired or suspended or just generally in trouble if I make a big deal about a hazard? It's a completely valid concern, but the legislation hits this head on. The law is crystal clear. When you report a hazard or refuse unsafe work, you are exercising a legal right. You're doing your duty. Because of that, it is 100% illegal for an employer to penalize you. No way can they fire you, cut your hours, stick you on a terrible shift, or harass you just for speaking up. If an employer actually does try to retaliate, you've got a massive support system ready to back you up. You can go straight to your trade union, file a formal complaint with the safety board, talk to a lawyer, or reach out to the Workers' Advisor's Office. They actually provide completely free legal advice and assistance for exactly this kind of situation.
So, we've seen throughout this explainer that the job site can be a totally unpredictable environment where risks change in a heartbeat. But your three basic rights, the right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse unsafe work, those act as your permanent legally backed shield. Safety is so much more than just compliance paperwork. It's a daily practice. The law absolutely guarantees that your voice matters, but, it only works if you actually use it. So the only question remaining is, when the moment comes, will you step up and use your rights to protect yourself and your crew?